welcome. Today it's another philosophy reflection, and we are going to speak about relations, empathy, and the love that is in between people. I think by now you discovered that in this month, where we discover the world of water, we've been speaking about emotions, about sensitivity, about memory, about flow. We spoke about the inner life. But water is not only something that is inside us. Water, in fact, is something that is always moving in between us. Because every relationship that we create has a current, has a feeling, has a type of water inside. And sometimes it is gentle, sometimes it is playful, sometimes it's deep and quiet. Sometimes it can be stormy or confused or frozen or overflowing. And when we come close to another person, especially when we are in love, we don't only meet their words and behavior, we also meet their waters. Our emotional bodies meet and merge to a certain level. We meet their fears, their tenderness, their old griefs. We meet their longing to be understood, all their hidden shames, all their hopes, all their defenses, all their love, all their joy, all the way that they are trying to reach us, and all the way that they are trying to protect themselves. And of course, it goes both ways. They meet ours too. And this is why relationships can be so beautiful and also so difficult. Because as we get closer and closer, our waters meet more and more. Because love is never only an idea. Love also happens in our nervous system, in our skin. Love is in the tone of voice of someone, in the timings, in the silence, in the moments that someone looks at us and we either soften or we close, depending on who is this person and how is the water inside them, inside us, and especially in between us. What is flowing there? What is the relation created? We often think or believe that empathy means understanding someone perfectly. But maybe empathy begins much more simply. Maybe it just begins when we remember that there is another inner world here. That the person in front of us is not only the role that they are playing in our story. They are not only my partner or my friend or my mother or my student or my child, my enemy, my disappointment, my comfort, my problem or my hope. They can play this role in my story, but they are a living being. They have their own waters. And those waters may be moving in ways that I cannot immediately see, I cannot imagine, or I cannot perfectly relate to. And this doesn't mean that we have to excuse everything. Absolutely not. Empathy is not the same as tolerating harm. It doesn't mean that we allow cruelty, manipulation, neglect, or disrespect. It doesn't mean that we abandon our own boundaries in order to understand someone else. But empathy does ask us to pause before we reduce another person to the first thing that we feel about them. Because, be honest, sometimes when we are hurt, we stop seeing the other person as a full human being. In that moment, when we are angry, when we are sad, when there is something in between us that disturbs the relation, it's very easy that the other one becomes only the one who hurt me, or the one who doesn't understand, or the one who should know it better, the one who is wrong. And perhaps Sometimes it's true. Sometimes the other person is wrong. Sometimes they did hurt you. And sometimes they do not understand, even if they should. But even then, there is still water underneath. There is still a current, a history, a fear. Maybe there is a wound, maybe a confusion, maybe a need, or maybe it's just a protection. Maybe a feeling that may have become clumsy or sharp or cold or hard, but it's there. And water teaches us to look deeper than the surface, not to drown in someone else. All this cannot be used as an excuse, but it can be used to understand. It can be used to see more truthfully. As by now you probably know, one of the first principles in yoga is ahimsa, non-harming. And in relationships, ahimsa begins very, very early. Because violence starts long, long before physical violence could actually happen. Ahimsa has to be present in how we speak, in how we listen, in how we use our words when we are disappointed, in how we treat the places in another person that are tender and that this person trusted us with. Ahimsa always asks, do my words make this water more poisonous or more clear? Do I speak now just to punish or to be understood and to understand? Do I listen just to reply and to argue? Or do I listen to meet the other person? Do I use truth as a knife or as a lamp? Because it matters. And this does not mean that we always have to speak softly, because sometimes love does need strong words. Sometimes a relation needs boundaries, and sometimes when we love, we have to say, no, this is not okay, for ourselves and for the other person. But even then, ahimsa asks us to not to lose the humanity of the other person, to not to reduce them. We can be firm without being cruel. We can be honest without humiliating the other one. We can protect ourselves without dehumanizing someone. And we can say no without needing to destroy the other person. And this is one of the great practices of relationship. We need to be able to stay awake in conflict, to remember that there is another person on the other side, not an object, not an obstacle, not an enemy that we have to defeat, but a person. And very often, a person that we love. And then comes satya, truthfulness. And in the relationship, truth is not only saying what happened, it's also daring to know what is happening inside us. Because often the first wave that we feel is not the deepest truth. Very often, especially in conflict, we would have the tendency to say, you never listen because we don't feel heard, or you do not care, or you're always like this, or I'm done. Or on the other side, we are angry but we don't want to say, so we just say, I'm fine, or nothing is wrong. But that's not the truth, and that creates a separation, because it's either reducing the inner world of the other one, the complexity, the reality, into something small that we feel, or it's reducing our own world. It's reducing the reality so that we don't hurt the other person, that we feel acceptable because we don't create a drama. But underneath, another water may be moving. Maybe it's I feel lonely, or I feel afraid, or I feel unseen, or I feel ashamed that I need this. Maybe I wanted to say I miss you, or I don't know how to ask, or just that I'm scared that if I show my softness, I will be rejected or I will be used. And those are more honest. They can be hard. They can be hard to say. They can be hard to hear. But eventually, that's what creates solutions, connections, understanding. Satya asks us to always listen beneath the first wave. And this is especially important in romantic relationships. It can be used in any area of our lives. But romantic love touches places that are very old and can be very wounded. It touches the wish to be chosen, the fear of being abandoned, the longing to be safe, maybe memories of not being heard, or the hope that someone will finally understand everything without us having to explain. But no human being can carry that perfectly. We can always give our best, and we can expect the other person to do the same. But we can't expect them to be perfect. Just as ourselves, we are going to make mistakes, and we are going to learn from them. But we cannot expect them to heal us fully if we are not contributing. Because no partner can become the ocean that heals all the dry places inside us, that heals all the wounds. And despite that, a romantic relationship, or in fact, any really loving relationship, can be deeply, deeply healing, especially if you had troubles before in similar situations. But it does become dangerous when we ask another person to become our only source of love, of water, of control, because then love becomes pressure, not connection. It becomes a duty for the other one, because they must always understand, they must always respond correctly, to reassure, to know, to repair, to be available, and to be the shore when you are flooding. And nobody can be that all the time. Of course, we all have to do our best to be correct, to repair if we break something, to be available for the other one, to understand. But nobody can be perfect all the time. And we do have to accept that. We have to be able to live with that and not to put our worth in the hands of another person. Water teaches us to be both closeness and flow. It teaches us to feel love fully, but not to turn another person into a possession or into an anchor. It teaches us to receive care, but not to demand that someone else regulates every wave that is inside us. It teaches us to offer tenderness, but not to become responsible for someone else's entire emotional world. And this is where empathy actually needs boundaries. Because if empathy does not exist, there is no love. Everything becomes dry. But if there are no boundaries, love becomes flooded, poisoned, or muddy. Because a river needs banks in order to move. If there are no banks, the river just spills everywhere. It goes everywhere. It destroys. But also, if there is no water, what's the point of the riverbed? It becomes just empty. Relationships also need both. They need the water of the feelings, and they need the earth as form. They need both tenderness and honesty, care and limits, closeness and space, listening and self-respect. Because there are very different situations. Sometimes the most loving thing is to come closer to someone. Sometimes the most loving thing is to pause and to think. Sometimes it's to say that I want to understand you and actually do behave like that. Sometimes it's to say I cannot speak well right now. I need time. And that's fine too. Sometimes the most loving thing is to hold someone. And sometimes it's not to absorb what belongs to them. Because that's not coldness either. It's just mature water. Water that can flow without flooding. Water that can meet another river without losing its own course. There is, in fact, a beautiful image from the work of Masaru Emoto, who became known for photographing frozen water crystals after exposing water to different words, music, and intentions. He discovered that water exposed to loving words formed more harmonious crystals, while water exposed to harsh words formed more chaotic shapes. And this is worth contemplating, especially because our body are made largely of water. And anyone who has lived in a human body knows that words affect us. A sentence can tighten the throat, a tone can make our belly hard, while a loving word can soften the shoulders, and a cruel word can stay in the body for years. An argument can make us cry, or can make us be frozen. The emotional waters between the people, the currents that we create in the relations, are affected by what we pour inside them. And this is not magic. This is not something abstract. This is relationship. This is biology. It's even our nervous system. It's in the memory, it's in the attachment, in the trust, and in the way that our body and our soul learns whether love is safe. So we can ask ourselves, just to be more conscious, what kind of water do I create around the people that I love? Do people become more themselves when they are near me, or do they become smaller? Do they feel that they can speak honestly, or must they manage my reactions? Maybe because I become angry, or maybe because I cry too easily, maybe because I use it against them. Do they feel held, or do they feel judged? Do they feel seen, or do they feel used? Do they feel like they have to ever perform, or to fix or please, to rescue me or to disappear, just because of my inner emotions? And also, the other side. What kind of water do I allow around myself? Do I let myself live in waters that constantly poison me? Do I call intensity love even when there is no safety? Do I call sacrifice love even when I'm disappearing and I don't get anything back from the other person? Do I call peace love even when everything important is frozen and unsaid? Water asks for honesty, not only about how much we love someone, but about the quality of the water in between us. Is it clear? Can truth be present there? Can tenderness be present there? Can anger move without becoming violence? Can sadness move without becoming shame? Can boundaries be there without being treated as rejection? Can two people be different and still remain connected? And this is a very deep question, because true empathy does not mean becoming exactly the same as the other person. It means being willing to feel with them, even if you still remain yourself. If you are sad, I can be near your sadness. I can comfort you, but I do not have to drown in it. If you are angry, I can try to understand the wound underneath. I can try to help you. I can correct if I did something wrong, but I do not have to accept being attacked. If you are afraid, I can offer reassurance. I can be there for you, but I cannot live my whole life just to prove that your fear is wrong, just to prove you that you are safe. If you're tender, I can be gentle with you, but I cannot become the only thing that holds you together. You also need to do the work. Empathy says, I see what you feel. I care what you feel. I will do my best to understand how the world looks from inside of you. But then wisdom also has to say, I'm still here too, and my body matters, my limits matter, my emotions matter. All my life in water matters too. And this balance is one of the most important teachings of love. Because many people confuse love with merging together. They think that if we love, there should be no separation, no boundary, no inner life, no need for space, not even occasionally, no different rhythms and no disagreements. But waters show us something else. Two rivers can meet, but they still came from different mountains. The sea can receive many rivers without making them identical. Rain can touch the earth without owning it. Love is not possession. Love is relationship, a living movement between two beings. And because it's living, it must be cared for again and again. Not just once, not only at the beginning, not only when things are romantic and easy, because love is cared for in small moments. It's not in not having disagreements, but in being able to own them, to go up to our mistakes, to correct what we said wrong, what we did wrong, to repair, to apologize, to be there with the other person, to choose each other again and again, and to choose to work on our water, and to help the other one to work on their own without making it our project. Love is always in the way that we answer, in the way that we repair and apologize, in the way that we listen even when we are tired, in the way we notice that the other person is unusually quiet or nervous, in the way that we absolutely do not mock what is tender or wounded, in the way that we don't use someone's confession against them later, in the way we are able to say, I'm sorry, I reacted from fear, or anger, or sadness, or from an old wound. In the way we can say also, tell me again, I don't see it yet, but I want to understand. Because this is karma yoga in the relationships, not only in serving strangers or doing noble work in the world, but by serving the field of love itself, softening the tone, repairing after conflict, creating safety, offering presence, choosing not to escalate, choosing not to poison the water just because we are hurt. And of course, this still doesn't mean that we are absolutely obliged to be perfect. But it does mean that we need to become responsible. Responsible for the water we bring, responsible for the waves that we send, responsible for the way our unresolved pain may spill into another person, responsible enough to be able to say, "This is my feeling, I want you to understand it, but I will not turn it into a weapon." And also responsible enough to say, "I care about your feeling, but I cannot let it to erase me." And this is love in practice, not in fantasy, because love is not constant harmony. It's not never hurting each other. It's the willingness to return to the water and clean what has become muddy, to notice if the river is blocked and to work on it, to thaw what has frozen, to calm what has flooded, to speak about what has been sitting silently at the bottom. And sometimes it can happen that we need to accept that two waters cannot safely mix in the way that we hoped at the beginning. And that's fine too, because empathy doesn't mean that every relationship must continue. Sometimes love also means letting go. Sometimes compassion means that we need to keep distance. Sometimes the most honest thing is to bless the water and to step away. But even if that's the only way, even then, we can try not to poison the river behind us. We can live with grief, but not with hatred. We can live with truth instead of revenge, with boundaries instead of cruelty, maybe with sadness, but never with distraction. And this is also practicing water. So today, perhaps, you could reflect on just one relationship, especially on a relationship where there are deep emotions involved and moving. It can be a romantic relationship, a friendship, maybe a family bond, or any human connection that matters deeply to you. And you can ask, what is the water like in between us? Is it clear? Is it warm? Is it frozen? Is it flooded? Is it stagnant? Is it too shallow or too stormy? Is it alive? And then you can ask also, what does the other person's water feel like? Not what do I want from them, not how they are making me feel, not how they are failing me, but what might be moving inside them, what they might be afraid of, where might they be tender or wounded, what might they be protecting, what might they need but not know how to ask, or too afraid to ask in the first place. And of course, then we need to ask the other half, what is moving inside me? Where am I tender? Where am I defending? Where am I loving? And where am I clinging? Where am I afraid? Where do I need to speak more clearly? Where do I need to listen more deeply? This is not to blame ourselves, but to become conscious. Because unconscious water always becomes either storm or ice or flood or just muddy and poison. Conscious water becomes relation. It can move, it can reflect, it can nourish, it can cleanse, it can carry love without drowning either person. And this is the water's teaching in love. Let your heart stay fluid. Let your words become cleaner, your empathy wider, your boundaries kinder. Let love be not about possession, but about meeting. because the person in front of you is also water, changing, feeling, remembering, carrying, healing, becoming. And every time we meet another person with more presence, more honesty, and more care, we make the water in between us just a little clearer. And that is also part of yoga.